Good morning, everyone. So yesterday in the last session, we have seen like what is performance testing, or what is non-functional testing. And what is the objective of doing performance testing, right? Right. So performance testing is a non-functional testing to determine an application's speed. When I say speed, response time of the application, and stability, scalability, and reliability of the application, right? So now let us see, like, in detail, like, what all these, what, let's see more details into this, and what are the goals of doing performance testing. So apart from these, four factors in doing performance testing, what are the other factors, and why do we need to do performance testing for an application, right? So first of all, these are the goals of performance testing. Four major factors for performance testing are like speed, stability, scalability, and reliability. Right. Now let's see each of this. Right. So speed means, like, to see, like, how speed is to check if the application respond quick enough for the intended users. Right. So when I say, respond quick enough, like, we are considering the response times. The response time should be as less as possible, isn't it? Response time should be as less as possible, and every application will have certain SLAs, right? SLA stands for service level agreement. So response time of each page should be within their SLAs, right? Can you note it down if someone is taking running notes, right? So you can take, you can take it in notepad, guys. Like, you can, rather than writing it with pen and paper, right? So you can take it in notepad or Word document. Better use notepad plus plus. Please don't use notepad. Use notepad plus plus, right? So response times of each page should be within the SLS. That is the first thing. And the next thing is stability. Stability means, like, to check how stable is the application under expected and unexpected user loads, right? So every application will have certain, target user load, right? So business analyst team will know, right? I repeat, business analyst team will provide you the numbers, like, how many users, how many users will be using any application, their application. How many users will be using their application? So that is expected user load. And unexpected user load is sometimes you get some unexpected, more than expected user load, right? So stability is to check how stable is the application under both expected and unexpected user load, right? And application performance should not degrade even after using very long time. Even when an application is used continuously for a long time, right, the application performance should not degrade. That is stability, right? And what is scalability? Scalability is, can the application handle unexpected user load, and how does it behave beyond its capacity? Say, for example, an application can target user load is some 5,000, right? So normally an application will be used by 5,000 users. Now, what if, there is more load on the application, like, more than 5,000 users, right? How does it behave beyond its capacity, right? Whether, response times will become slow, or if the application crashes, right? So this is like, this is checking this is called as scalability. How scalable is the application, right? And this shows application's ability to handle increasing user load without performance degradation, right? So the application ability to handle increasing user load means more than the expected user load without performance degradation, right? This tells you how scalable is the application. Is it clear, guys? Okay, let me complete the other one also, and then I'll take a pass for any queries. Okay. The next important factor for doing performance testing is reliability. When I say reliability, how reliable is the application, and will the users have positive experience on go live? Go live means once the application goes into production, will all the users have positive experience or not? Okay. And how reliable is the application? Right. So this is reliability. So these are the four major factors for doing performance testing. Apart from this, there are few other, important factors for doing performance testing, which we will discuss now in the today's session. However, these are the important, four major factors for doing performance testing. Right. what are those? Speed, stability, scalability, and reliability. Yeah, I'll take a pass here. If you have any queries, we can discuss. So can I take your silence as no? Are you able to hear me, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, can we move ahead? Shall we proceed?
Yes.
Right. And now, so we'll come to this performance metrics, like, okay. So, yeah. So, when we are testing, when we are doing performance testing for an application, so these are the performance metrics that we need to monitor. We need to, keep an eye on. So what are those? Or else, these are the 4 important metrics to consider when you are doing performance testing. Right? On the client side, we need to, the first and foremost important metric is response time. Right? Everyone knows what is response time, right? Let me explain what is hits per second. So hits per second is nothing but, how many requests are going to the web server. How many requests are going to the web server. That is hits per second. Throughput is nothing but, how many transactions an application can handle in a second. That is right. That is throughput. Or this can also be defined as, byte sent plus byte received. Let me explain, what is this byte sent and okay. Let me, byte plus. See, the first and foremost metric is response time, response times of each page, right? The next one is hits per second. So when I say hits per second, how many requests are going to the server, web server? That is hits per second. Let me show you a typical application architecture. Okay. So assume that this is your browser. You may be using any of these browsers like IE or Chrome or Firefox, right? And when you are sending a request, when you are typing, gmail.com or google.com or facebook.com or irctc.co.in, right? So any URL, so any request, when you send any request from your browser, so it will first go to the web server, right? This is a typical application architecture. Let me maximize this. This is a typical application architecture base, right? So your request will first go to the web server, and then there will be, so if the request is for a static page, right? If the request is for a static page, then it will be presented by the web server itself, right? If the request is for a dynamic page, or there is some dynamic content in the page in your request, right? So it will go to the application server, and if right, so that's why this is called as application tier or logic tier. If you can see here, this is presentation tier, web server is a presentation tier. The middle layer is called as logic tier or application tier, and the third layer is called persistence tier, like, which is nothing but database layer. So simple to understand, let me give some simple example for this. What is the static content, what is dynamic content, and where does your request go to the database server, right? So let me give some example for that. So basically, this is the typical application architecture of any web application. Okay. So let me give some example for this. Like when I say static content and dynamic content, right? So I opened a browser, and typed gmail.com. Right? I opened a browser and I typed gmail.com. The first time you open this page, right? So this every user will get the same page, right? Yes, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? So, or else, if I go to any other website, okay, say for example, facebook.com. Hold on. Every user will get the same page, right? The first time you access the page.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is static content. This doesn't change with, this doesn't change for any user, right? or else if you take irctc.co.in, right? So every user will, will get the same page, isn't it? And so these are all called as static content, right? Static means it doesn't change, isn't it? Which doesn't change frequently,
Yes.
right? Here, this page doesn't change unless, developer makes some change to this, this home page, right? So does, this page doesn't change, right? Now, suppose you search for some, let us take this IRCTC example only. You search for trains from one station to one location to another location, right? And if you click on search button, right? Now this content changes or no? Is this static content or dynamic content?
Dynamic.
Right, because you see this available number changes, available number of ticket changes, and the trains,
Yes.
number of trains also may change based on the date. Based on the date that you are searching, like the trains also, the train information also changes, right? So some trains will be running only on few
Yes.
days in a week, isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right? So this is a dynamic page. So this,
Yes, sir.
so when you send a request for a dynamic page, it will go to this, application server. If it is a static content, if your request is for a static page, right? So it will be served by web server itself. However, if your request involves some logic, some application logic. So what is the application logic here in this example? So you search for some trains from Secunderabad to Pune, right? So it has to fetch that all the trains which are running from Secunderabad to Pune, isn't it? So it has to process. There is some application logic involved here. It should not show all the trains, but it should show all the trains running from Secunderabad to Pune only on the specified date, whatever date you have mentioned, isn't it? So there is some application logic involved here, and in that case, your request will go to the application server, and application server will not be having all those details, right? So it will send that request to the that information will be stored in the database, and it requires some information from the database tables, right? So your request will go to the database layer also, right? And it fetches the data from some table in the database. Assume that there is a table called trains table, right? So it will fetch the data, it will run a query. Your application server will run a SQL query and get the data from the database. It will process that logic and it will send to the web server, and web server sends to the browser, sends the response to the browser. Is this clear, guys? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right? So it involves, like you understood clear difference between static content and dynamic content, right? Is it clear, guys? Right. So, now, so where are we, guys? Sorry, I missed the,
It's per second complete.
huh?
Hits per second.
Hits per second, right? So, like now the number of requests that are sent to the web server, right? That is called as hits. The total number of requests that are sent to the server, that is called as hits. Now there is a difference here. There is a difference between request and a hit. Let me explain that now. Right? There is a difference between request and a hit. Important for interview question, guys. What is the difference between a request and a hit? I will copy all these into, I'll create one Word document for, for your class notes. I'll copy this thing today into, a Word document and I'll share it to everyone. Right? So very important interview question. What is the difference between request and a hit? What is the difference between a request and a hit? Right? So let us understand this. Right? So if you type a irctc.co.in, say for example, you type irctc.co.in, right? This is a request. You have sent one request to the server, right? So this, whatever we type, in the browser and submit, that is called as a request, right? Or you type, gmail.com. You have sent one request to the browser for Gmail page, right? for Gmail page. So you have sent one request. Now there will be many hits to the web server. There will not, only one request will not go to the server. There will be many requests to the server. So let me show you that. How to see that is, if you go to developer tools, right? So you can launch developer tools by using the shortcut Control-Shift-I, right? And go to the, go to network tab, right? And like I'm refreshing the page to send the request again to the server to show you something, right? So I'm refreshing the page. Now observe here. Now observe here, guys. So this is the main request that we have sent. You'll see over here. This is the main request that we have sent. Okay. This is the main request, right? Now observe here, when we send one request, observe here, there are a lot of sub requests that are getting to the server, that are being sent to the server. How many are there? There are 28 requests that are sent to the server, right? So if for any page, right? For any page, okay, whenever you send any request, so let's see for some other page, okay. Control-Shift-I is the shortcut for opening the developer tools. Right? I'm just refreshing the page. So I'm sending one request. This is our main request that we have sent to the server. Right? Facebook.com. This is the main request, isn't it? I'm in network tab, and this is called as developer tools. I repeat once again. So developer tools will be used by any software engineer, whether it is a developer or functional test engineer or performance test engineer. So any software engineer have to be well versed with this developer tools, and they should know how to use it. Okay, so this is our main request, and if you observe here, for this main request, actually 52 requests went to the server. 52 requests go to the server. You can see here, right? You can see the count at the bottom. So what are the guys? What are those sub requests? What are those sub requests? See here, you have some images, right? You have some images, and you have some JavaScript files, CSS files. We'll discuss that very soon. And so these are called as sub requests, right? And all these are called as hits to the server. There are a total of 52 requests to the server, or there are 52 hits to the server. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, Kishore.
Yes.
So now let's come back to this, right? So this is nothing but this hits per second. How many hits are sent to the server? How many hits per second web server is receiving, right? That is this hits per second. Now we understood the difference between request and a hit, right?
Yes.
Request is nothing but the URL that we type in the browser, and hits are nothing but how many requests are actually going to the server, web server. That is called as hits. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right now, so this is hits per second. So this is hits. This is this hits is nothing but how many requests are actually how many requests are going to the server, web server, right? And then throughput, right? Let us understand what is this throughput. Throughput, throughput has we can define throughput from server side as well as client side. Let me explain you that. Okay, throughput can be defined as number of from the server side, number of requests that an application can handle, right? Request an application can handle. See, this is from server perspective. Right? Number of requests an application can handle. This is from server perspective. You understood what is meant by server perspective? From your application server perspective, how many requests can an application handle? Right? That is called as throughput. See, from your server perspective, how many requests can an application handle? Right? That is throughput. Now, from the client perspective, from the client side or from the user side, right? So throughput is nothing but bytes sent plus bytes received. Okay, byte sent plus byte received. So what is this byte sent and byte received? Let us understand what is this byte sent and what is this bytes received, right? So if you go to the developer tools, right? Okay, so byte sent is nothing but size of your request. What is the size of your request? That is byte sent. Okay, I'll come back to this. So byte sent is nothing but size of the request, right? And bytes received is nothing but response size, right? You understood request and response, right, everyone? Request is something we send it from the browser, and response is something which we receive from the server to the browser. Clear, guys?
Yes, Vishnu.
Right? And when you send a request, it will have some size, right? It's measured in bytes, right? And also when you receive a response from the server, that can also be measured in some bytes, right? So throughput is nothing but byte sent plus byte received. How much what is the size of the request and what is the size of the response, right? That is called as throughput, right? Sum of request, right? You got it, right? Sum of byte sent plus byte received, that is throughput. Is it clear, guys, for everyone what is meant by throughput?
Yes.
So when we are doing performance testing, right, we see what are the what is the throughput of the application, right? From the client side, how much data is sent to the server, how much data is received from the server. From the server side, what we look is we'll come to that, we'll discuss that server side metric, but these are the client side metrics that we are that are important for monitoring. When we discuss server side metrics, we'll discuss what is the throughput, right? And now disk IOPS. Disk IOPS means input output operations per second. Disk IO per second. In IO for input output. PS means per second, right? Disk IOPS. This is another important client side metric, okay, that we will monitor. So we'll discuss this once we are doing a text execution, right? Then we will discuss this again in detail. We will revisit this, but for now, important remember that these are the important client side metrics. Okay, on the client side, we monitor these metrics like response time, bits per second, throughput, and disk IOPS. And now coming to the server side metrics. Coming to the server side metrics, these are the important server side metrics: CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk utilization, network utilization, and system processor queue length. System processor queue length. Right? Let us understand each of these. Right? Let's understand each of these. Why these are important. Right? Let's understand why these server side metrics are important. Right? So before discussing technical details, right? Before discussing technically, right? So assume that you are using a laptop or desktop, right? And you are using, you are opening multiple programs. Let's say you are opening, you are using multiple programs, right? And your system becomes slow at some point. After some time, your system becomes slow, right? Then what do you generally check? If your system is becoming slow and hanging, right? So what do you generally check?
Task manager.
Yeah, you go to, yeah, what do you check in Task Manager? I open a Task Manager, and what do you check here?
Performance.
Right. So you'll see, like, if you are, if you have basic computer knowledge, what you see, you go to, you see, like, which program is taking more CPU. Observe here, Google Chrome is taking, like 73% memory, right? No, sorry. So out of 73%, like Google Chrome is taking 1327 MB, isn't it? See, out of the total memory, 73% is already being used. Memory means RAM, guys, right? Physical memory. See the tooltip. When I put my cursor there, see physical memory in use by active processes, right? Or if you see the CPU utilization, how much CPU utilization is currently, how much CPU is currently in use, right? So generally, if you are, if you have computer basics, if you have computer knowledge, so if your system is hanging, you will open a task manager and you see, like, how is the CPU utilization and memory utilization, right? If sometimes when your system is hanging, when does your system hang? If your CPU utilization is hitting 100%, or if your memory utilization is hitting 100%, right? Then generally your system hangs, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you're now coming back to this, right? So that's why, when in the same way, like, if your applications, if you are testing any software application, right? And, if you want to see, like, if we are facing some performance issues, means if your page is loading slow, or, if your website is not responding, right? Then these are the important server side metrics to monitor. What are those? Percent processor time on the servers, right? These are server side metric tests. When I say server side metrics, we have to monitor these metrics on all these servers, right? You have to monitor metrics on all these servers: web server, application server, database server, when you are doing performance testing for any application, right? These are the important metrics to monitor. What are those guys? Percent processor time. Percent processor time is nothing but CPU utilization. Okay, that is nothing but CPU utilization. Okay, right? And next, available in memory. Under memory, we see available in M bytes. Right? Let me go to memory. So see here, what is the available memory? Available memory means free memory that is available now. Right? I have out of total 16 gigs, right? GB is pronounced as gigs, right? Out of total 16 gigs, right? I have 16 GB RAM. Out of total 16 GB, 11.6 GB is already in use, and available memory is 4 GB. If this available memory comes to 0, then my system stops responding, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So there is no memory on the server there is no memory on the machine to serve the additional request, isn't it? If it becomes 0. So you understood now why these are important, guys. CPU, memory, and disk, and all this. And now see this disk. What is the disk utilization? As of now, it is 3%. It is varying between 1 to 3%, isn't it? The disk utilization. All right. And network utilization. So you can see the network utilization here. If you are connected to LAN cable, then you have to see Ethernet. But now I am connected to Wi-Fi. Right. So this should be something. So this refers to LAN cable. If you are connected, observe here, what is this throughput? It is mentioned throughput here, right? Throughput is nothing but byte sent plus byte received, amount of data transferring, right? And there is no traffic here because I'm not connected to a LAN cable. This is Ethernet. Ethernet refers to the LAN cable, guys. Okay. And actually it should show Wi-Fi here actually. Okay, let me show why it is showing Ethernet. It will show Wi-Fi, but somehow right now it is showing Ethernet. Actually, it's this relates to Wi-Fi connection. You can observe here, right? This is the data that is getting transferred, right? Throughput measured in kilobytes per second. You can see here, right? Kilobytes per second, right? Guys, able to follow? I'm sorry, this is actually small b refers to bits. Okay, see. So small b represents bits, capital B represents bytes. Okay. So throughput is measured in some kilobytes per second, something like that, right? Now, so let's come back to this. So you understood, right? This is the network utilization. How much my network is being utilized. Network utilization is nothing but bytes total per second, which is sum of bytes sent plus byte received. As simple as that. Network utilization is measured by bytes total per second, which is the sum of bytes sent plus bytes received. How much data request is sent and how much response is received from a server perspective. And processor queue length. The next important metric is processor queue length. Processor queue length means, let me give some real life example. Right. Suppose you went to, you went to a movie theater, you went to a mall, or you went to a movie theater, for buying a ticket, right? And assume that there are some 4 counters, right? So, if 4 people, go at once, right? So each person will go to a different counter, isn't it? 4 different people came to buy tickets, right? So as there are 4 counters, like they will go to 4 different counters, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, what if like 8 people came together, or what if like 10 people came together? So there will be some queue length, right? I mean, each person will go into some queue, like 4 people will be buying the tickets, and the remaining 4 people will be waiting for that turn, isn't it?
Yes.
So in the same way, when for the processor also there will be something called processor queue. When there are lot of processes, okay. Let's say for example, I'm opening Task Manager again. There are some processes running here. See how many processes are running in the foreground, in the front end. There are 16 processors running. See here, apps 16 means there are. I opened 16 applications. I opened 16 applications, and all the 16 applications are running. Ignore this background process, okay? They will be running in the background. So there are 16 processes running as of now, right? And if you observe my CPU, how many logical processors are there? See here, there are 12 logical processors, right? Means there are 12 queues here. There are 12 counters here. If you compare this with the movie theater, right? There are 12 counters here, ticket counters here, right? And now 12 counters can serve 12 users at a time, right? So in the same way, I have 12 processors here, and it can serve 12 12 applications at a time. So if there are more if I open few more applications, right? Let me use Windows T. If I open few more applications, say for example, I am opening Toad, I'm opening some other applications parallelly, right? Let me open few more applications. Now what happens, so if the processor is free, it will serve the new request, right? If it is not free, now these process, I mean, whatever applications I ran now, they will go into a queue. They will be waiting in the queue for the processor, right? Till the processor gets free. Is it clear, guys?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
how many apps I have? Now I have 19 applications running. However, I have only 12 logical processors. What happens is these processors can serve only one process at a time, one application at a time. So what they will do is, the additional 7 applications, they will be waiting in the queue for the processor, right? For the processor cycle, for the CPU cycle, right? So that is called as processor queue length. Processor queue length is nothing but what is the length of the queue? That is processor queue length of the queue for the processor, for each processor. That is processor queue length. Is it clear, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Just correlate this with a movie theater example. Suppose if there are 4 counters available, right? If 4 people came, all the 4 people can be served simultaneously, isn't it? All the 4 people can be served simultaneously. If there are more than 4 people, they have to stand in a queue, right? So that is, if there are 5 people in the queue, then the processor queue length is 5, nothing but 5, right? In the same way here also, all the additional process, all the process which are waiting in the queue, right? That is that gives you the processor queue length for each processor. Is it clear, guys? And this should be monitored. This will tell you whether the CPU capacity is sufficient or not on the server, right? So we will discuss again like once we go to server monitoring thing, right? Once we complete the training, once we complete the scripting, and once we start that server side monitoring, right? Then you will understand more better than now, right? So once we go to server monitoring and DB concepts, right, I'll explain these in detail. Okay, so yeah, so here we will revisit all these terms: person, process, time, process, queue length, available byte, percent disk time, bytes total per second. I will explain in detail one more time after scripting is completed. But however, like I assume that you got a basic idea like why these server side metrics are important to monitor. See, simple example, like if your system is hanging, we generally look into someone who has some basic computer knowledge, they will open task manager and see like, what is the issue, right? What do we look here? We see like if his CPU is hitting 100% or memory is hitting 100%, right? Memory utilization is hitting 100%. So if you see here, then you will get a idea like, what is causing the system slowness, isn't it? So in the same way, when you are doing a load test, right, when you are doing performance testing for any application, these are the important metrics to monitor. If there are some, isn't it? I'll take a pass here. Any queries we can discuss this.
Sir, what is disk IOPS?
What is disk IOPS?
Disk IOPS, yeah.
Okay. Disk IOPS means, first of all, IOPS stands for input output. Okay. IOPS means input output per second, right? So disk IOPS, let me open the task manager one more time. So if you see here, if you go to performance tab and select disk, right, it will show you how much disk is being utilized, right? So I have an SSD here, but generally, like, servers, they will be having hard disk, right? They will be having hard disk. As this is a laptop, I have SSD, right? I mean, of course, like, we have both, we have different types of disk, like hard disk and SSD, different types of disk. SSD stands for solid state drive, right? You can, note it down. SSD stands for solid state drive. The other type of disk, the more regular type of disk that you have in the
HDD.
system is HDD, hard disk. Right? SSD stands for solid state drive. So generally, this SSD will be faster than hard disk. Okay. So if you want to understand, difference between how they work and what is the difference between hard disk and SSD, just Google it. We cannot. That is out of scope here. But generally, like, at a high level, SSD will be like a RAM actually. It will be something like your RAM, and it will be faster because there are no moving parts. In hard disk, you will have moving parts, and when you try to read something to the file or write to some hard disk, right? So there will be some, your hard disk head should be rotating, right? Let me show you, quickly the difference between how, hard disk and SSD works. See here, right? SSDs are faster and more efficient than HDDs. HDDs are priced lower, but SSD prices are, SSD prices are comparatively very high now. Gradually, they are coming down because that is a new technology, right? Like right now they are costly, but they are coming down, right? So hard disks are legacy storage technology that use spinning disks to read or write data, right? So how your hard disk will be something like this, right? SSD will be like your RAM. So your hard disk will be like this. You will have disks like this, and there will be a rotating head. If you are opening some programs, or when you click on save, right? So it will, your disk head, your head should rotate to a particular place, and it will write it in the form of zeros and ones. It will save your data in the form of zeros and ones, right? So as this involves some moving parts, right? So it will be slower. Hard disk will be slower and also bulky. It will, it will be having some weight like for 200 grams or 150 grams, like that, right? Whereas SSDs are, like RAM, and they are fast. They will be very more faster, efficient, and faster. And also with hard disk, like there is a chance of your hard disk getting crashed, right? So, but SSD, you will not have that risk of crashing. Okay. Anyways, so coming to this disk IOPS, coming back to this disk IOPS. So whenever you read something, you do some read operation. When you do some read operation means, if you open a Word document, that means you have a file on your system and you are opening that file. right? Then you are doing a reading operation, right? So that is you are doing some like operation on the disk, or if you made some changes and you are you are saving it, then you are doing some write operation, isn't it? You are doing some write operation to the disk. That is called as IOPS. That's it. Okay, that is nothing but IOPS, input
sir.
and output. There, guys. And how many read operations, how many write operations you are doing per second? That is called as IOPS. Clear, guys? What is IOPS? Disk IOPS.
Yes.
Yeah, one question. This client-side metrics, we measure using PT tools or using dev tools.
Yeah, we performance test tools give these metrics. For example, if you are using LoadRunner, they will measure these client-side metrics, or JMeter. Any performance testing tool will give the client-side metrics by itself. Whereas server-side metrics, we have to use some, we have to use some other tools, or else some tools have, like some provision to measure these also, server-side metrics also.
Okay.
Okay, so you can use some PT tools also. They will also measure. Some tools measure both client-side metrics and server-side metrics also. All right. Now, but majorly, like the client-side metrics, that is any performance testing tool. That is a main of. They have to measure these, client-side metrics. They will show you like what is the what are the response times, average, min, max response times, and so on. You'll understand this, once we start scripting, right? You will understand that scripting and executions. You'll understand this, But however, like I need to give some introduction to what is meant by client-side metric, what is server-side metric. That's why like I'm covering it here, and what are the performance metrics that we need to monitor, right? So let me go to the next slide. So any queries here, guys?
No, sir, clear.
Right. So let me go to the next slide. Now, these are the other goals of doing performance testing. So these are the these are the 4 major factors for doing performance testing to measure speed, stability, scalability, and reliability. And apart from those 4 major factors, there are few other factors, for doing performance testing for an already existing system. Assume that there is an already existing system, already, some application is in production. What is meant by production, guys? Let us understand what is meant by production, right? Production means which is already in use. Say, for example, used by real-time users. So facebook.com, this is already in production. This is already being used by real-time users. IRCTC or Redbus or Gmail, right? These all applications are already in use, isn't it? So that is production. That is meant by already in production. So, what are the reasons for doing performance testing for an already existing system and for a newly built application? There are 2 different, categories here. So we need to do performance testing for both of these, already for applications which are already in production, as well as for a newly developed application. So let's understand, in what cases we do performance testing. For a initially, for first of all, let us understand why do we need to do performance testing for an already existing system. I can give some very nice examples here to understand this. The first and foremost factor is whenever there is some new feature or new functionality getting added to the application, we have to do performance testing. Whenever there is a new feature or new functionality is getting added to an existing application. So let me give some example for this. Okay. So say, for example, you have, I'll take some, real-time examples here. So if everyone uses redbus.in, right? Everyone might have used, okay. As I have some people from other time zones, I'll take some other example, right? So I have one guy from US, right? I'll take some other example. So if everyone has a Facebook account, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? So, Facebook has recently introduced a feature called, not recently, I think in 2020, last year or before 2019, they introduced a feature called, account switcher. Did you observe, all of you observe that Let me log into my Facebook account. Suppose I have two Facebook accounts. Okay. So, and I log into one of my account. Okay. I logged into one of my account. Okay. So, and now recently, very recently, I mean in the recent past, like in the recent 1 year, right? So they introduced some feature called, account switcher. Did you observe that, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Going now. Right. So, hold on. So, suppose you have two Facebook accounts, right? Somehow, guys, it is not showing that feature now. Let me go to menu. Is it available in menu? Anyways, so do you know that, like, we can switch to other account without logging out? They introduce some feature. I think, I'm not sure why it is not showing up. But did you observe, like, did you observe that there used to be a feature called, account switcher? Yes or no? Say yes or no. Let me see,
Yes, sir.
I'm already logged in here. How many of you know that feature, guys? That account switcher feature.
I know, sir.
Right. So without logging out, what you can do is you can directly, without logging out in the current account, from the current Facebook account, you can, switch to the another Facebook account, right? That feature was introduced, in 2019 or so, right? So Facebook application is existing from many years. However, whenever some such new feature is introduced, right? So we have to do performance testing whenever such new feature is introduced. Right? Let me take some more examples. Okay. So I will take irctc.co.in example. Right? So previously, when we used to like, around 4 or 5 years back, whenever we book a ticket, right? We don't know whether that book ticket will be confirmed or not, isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? However, IRCTC recently introduced a feature called, like confirmation probability. How many? I hope everyone knows that feature. Yes or no, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Everyone knows that feature. Does everyone know that feature? Confirmation probability feature.
Yes, sir.
Suppose you search for sometimes from, say for example, from Secunderabad to Bangalore, right? And assume that your ticket is in waitlist, right? So it is in waitlist, right? So if you book a ticket now, right? So once you book it, when you are booking the ticket, right? There is a new feature introduced called confirmation probability, isn't it? Yes or no,
Yes,
guys?
sir. Yes, sir.
Confirmation probability. So even though IRCTC is existing for many years, application is existing for many years, right? It is already in production, isn't it? So whenever some new feature, such new feature is introduced, right? So again we have to do performance testing, because we don't know, like, what will be the performance implication of the new feature. Because of that new feature, like, we don't know how the new feature will affect the performance. In the same way, for the Redbus also, for Redbus application also, there is some new feature introduced called, what is that? Can someone tell, like, what is the new feature introduced in Redbus recently? Recently, some new feature is introduced called, postponing the ticket, right? Reschedule ticket. Did you use that anytime, or did you see that anytime?
No, sir.
No.
No. Yes. So previously, suppose you book a ticket on Redbus, and if you want to postpone your journey, so you have to cancel the existing ticket, the booked ticket, and you have to book a new ticket. but recently they have introduced a new feature called rescheduling the journey, right? Reschedule option. So, without canceling and booking another ticket, right? You can reschedule it for the same bus, right? So whenever some such new feature is introduced for any application, we have to do performance testing to make sure that the new feature is not adversely affecting the performance. Because of this new feature, the performance of the application should not degrade, right? So that's why, like whenever a new feature is introduced, we have to do performance testing, right? And what are the other cases? Increasing number of users are adding new users, right? Let me give one more example. Let me give one example for this, right? One real life example for this. So if you are following news, right, recently, like, some banks are, I mean, in 2020 or so, like, 5 State Bank of India subsidiary branches, 5 State Bank subsidiaries got merged into SBI, the main State Bank of India. I hope everyone knows that news, right? State Bank of Hyderabad, State Bank of, State Bank of Hyderabad, State Bank of Mysore and Mysore, right? And few other banks got merged into State Bank of India. How many of you know that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we know that.
Right? Everyone knows that, right? SBI merger, right? If you search for SBI merger, banks list 2020, right? You can see that, 6 merged banks are, see, hold on. Indian was not this one. This is 2020. Yeah, of course. So, like there is some merger happening, and I will take some example, like, or else let me take another example. Okay. Kotak Mahindra Bank acquired some other bank. Does anyone know what is that bank? Kotak Mahindra Bank acquired ING Vysya Bank, right? So before this merger, right, before this acquisition, ING Vysya Bank users have their own website. Kotak Mahindra Bank has their own website, right? Kotak Mahindra Bank website is kotak.com. ING Vysya Bank used to have their own website. Now, once this, once this acquisition happened, right? All the users of ING Vysya Bank after acquisition, right? They have to start using kotak.com. Yes or no? So before merger, before this acquisition, right? ING Vysya Bank has their own website. Now, after this acquisition, post merger, right? All the ING Vysya Bank website will be down. It will not be functioning further. And some new users, I mean, the existing users of ING Vysya Bank they will all start using this kotak.com, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
or no?
Yes, sir.
So there is some new set of users adding to the application, right? So there is increase in the number of users are adding new users. Now, Kotak Mahindra Bank should do performance testing for their application. Let us assume that, ING Vysya Bank has, let's assume that Kotak Mahindra Bank has some 5 lakh users, net banking users. Okay. Net banking users. Okay. And, ING Vysya Bank has some 1 lakh users. Before merger, right? Before this acquisition happened, let's assume that there are 1 lakh users for ING Vysya Bank, right? Now, after acquisition, after Kotak Mahindra bought this ING Vysya Bank, right? This 1 lakh users of ING Vysya Bank will start using this kotak.com only post merger. Yes or no? So there are 1 lakh new users who will start using this kotak.com net banking application. Yes or no? Now, before this merger, right? Before this merger process, right? Kotak has to test their application, this kotak.com application, to check if their application can support this, 1 lakh more new users or not. Whether their application supports 1 lakh new users or not. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? In that case, so this exactly corresponds to that, right? Increasing number of users are adding new users. Whenever, there are some new users getting added to the application also, they have to do performance testing for their application, even though it is existing from many years, isn't it? You understood, guys? So, this, you understood this point?
Yes, sir.
Increasing number of users are adding new users, right? Yeah. So I can give many examples like this. State Bank of India, like State Bank of Hyderabad, State Bank of Mysore, State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur, right? 5 banks got merged in some 2019, I guess. SBHEM, State Bank of Mysore, right? Merger in SBI. I think it's 2019 or 18, right? So now, once this merger happened, so previously, like before that, they have each bank, they have their own website, right? Shared bank. See, these are the banks that got merged in 2019. Bikaner and 2019 or 18? Is this 2000? Okay. So this is 17 new since 17 that actually happened in 2018, I think, right? So State Bank of all these banks got merged. Few banks got merged in SBI. State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur, State Bank of Mysore, State Bank of Travancore, State Bank of Hyderabad, and BMB, Bharti Mahila Bank, right? So before that, they have their own website. This Bharti Mahila Bank may be having their own website, but after the merger, like everyone has to use the State Bank of India. Now State Bank of India has to do performance testing for their application to see if their existing website can support these additional users or not, right? So this, this represents that scenario. Increasing number of users are adding new users, right? Or whenever there is some major software upgrade like database or OS migration on servers, right? Let's assume that, every year or, every now and then, like, every software will be getting an upgrade, right? So assume that, right now State Bank of India using some Oracle database, and, it is using Oracle 11 version. Now Oracle released 12 version as a stable version, let's assume, right? So maybe, I'm not sure what is the latest version, maybe it's 14 or 15. I'm just taking some example, right? So, and now State Bank of India want to upgrade the database to a newer version, right? Then also they have to do performance testing. First, they will not upgrade directly in production, right? They will first do that in test environment. They will upgrade the database first in test environment, do performance testing, and if they feel that it is satisfactory, if there is no degradation in performance, right, or if there is improvement in performance, then only they will upgrade in production, right? Or else there is some OS migration, operating system migration, then also they have to do performance testing, right? Or else in the case of hardware upgrade, whenever there is some hardware upgrade, right, again they have to do performance testing, right? So we'll discuss. I will stop it here, right? So we'll resume from tomorrow. All right. So these are the cases when we have to do performance testing for an already existing application. Okay. And we will also discuss what is the necessity of doing performance testing for a newly built application. Why should we do performance testing for a newly built application? So these are the reasons why we have to do performance testing for a newly built application, guys. Very important interview question. This topic is very important question. So if you give examples like this, right, if you explain like this and you will give, so this may be one of the top 10 first 10 interview questions. If you give such examples, right, interview will start with a very positive impression, right? So I'll stop it here, guys. We'll continue tomorrow. Yeah. For the recording purpose, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I'll be uploading, around 10 demo sessions as free videos. So once actual, LoadRunner or JMetric started, I will be uploading as private videos and sharing to, those who joined the training only. Okay. I'll be recording them. I'll be uploading them as private videos once JMetric started or once LoadRunner is started, right? So, however, like I'll be uploading for 10 demo sessions as free videos, public videos, so that anyone can watch. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.